Okay, ready when you are.
Yeah, okay. 1, 2, 3.
I just heard the echo.
Welcome to Friends on Purpose.
Where two friends talk about life, love,
And finding purpose.
Eric.
Elaine.
Today we're actually, should we just be honest? We're re-recording this.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. We already kind of had this conversation. In order to keep trust with our listeners, I like to be honest. This is a trustworthy
We're all about
source.
transparency.
That's right. Yeah, we had this chat, and I think we both felt like we wanted to articulate things a little better, and it was really helpful to record it once and just like think on this. And now I think we feel like we might have a better frame of reference.
And for reference, this is gonna dive a little deeper than we have before about my church kind of. I've been calling it cult experience.
Yeah.
I know that term cult is kind of loaded, but I think it checks a lot of the boxes. And so this is going to be part one.
Yep.
Of 2 parts, to where I just kind of give my church experience, because I know folks have been curious and wanting to know more about that. And I think it will be a good base for future podcasts, because it constantly comes up. So for folks to have a bit of a reference of where I'm coming from, we thought it was a good idea to talk a little bit about it.
We did,
but it also folds into the question that we
right. The question that we originally wanted to start with, which we know we talked about last episode, but just as a reminder, is what expectations have you had to let go of to be more yourself?
Yeah.
And I don't think you could think of anything else more.
Yeah.
Like,
I thought about okay, do I want to do church? Do I want to
Right.
talk about my church life? I could do work, but that seems kind of boring. That's just like normal growth stuff.
Super boring.
Yeah.
When you've been in a cult, talking about work is super boring.
Yeah. So like in my culty church, there was a lot of expectations, and navigating them became like a full-time job. It was like very emotional, very psychological task, right? And at best it was very disorienting, and at worst it was traumatizing. And so there were many expectations placed on Emily and I, and there were there was a certain set of expectations that we eventually had to just like consciously decide to let go of, because they just weren't working for us. And whether it was like a reluctance or like, I guess sometimes I look at it as kind of a little bit of like resistance, like our little protest, against the powers that be, right? That at the risk of sounding cheesy, I think our love for each other really preserved our relationship through this very controlling environment. And so that's why I wanted to focus on these, because it seemed like a significant milestone for me, in just preserving the life I wanted to live. And so that, the expectation that Emily and I had to let go of was the church's version of Christian gender roles. Yeah. I should emphasize that everything I say today is my perspective.
Sure.
It may not be representative of someone else's experience who went through the same, who lived the same within the same group.
Yeah.
So I do want to make that clear. My experience wasn't the same as everyone else's. In some ways, I was luckier than others.
Mm-hmm. So what happened first? How old were you and Emily when you got married?
I was 21. She was 20.
Okay.
So babies.
Yeah, you were young.
Yeah.
And so what changed? What then changed when you got married?
Yeah. So uh, I guess the there was added responsibilities to those roles. Um, and they were more like obligations, like there's so much more freedom as a single person, and
Hmm.
especially as a child. I mean, we
Yeah.
were we were just 20, 21. So
Right.
we're just, you know, we're still young. Uh,
Yeah.
in many ways, I was still thinking like a teenager,
Right.
but but they got very specific, and it was kind of like, okay, it's no more time to play around here. It's time to act like a man, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the roles for men, while like the enforcement was kind of nebulous and vague, or like the accusations,
Mm.
I do remember there were at least three things. There might have been more, but the three that I remember and like focusing on were they all start with P. So as a husband and as a father, you were expected to be the priest, to be the protector, and to be the provider. I think there were maybe one or two more, but those terms, I looked it up. I think came from Dr. James Dobson. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
Okay, so he was like this Christian family guru for, the guy you go to for godly family life advice.
Like in the 70s, 80s, 90s,
Yeah,
2000s.
all of
Yeah.
those. He
Okay.
was a voice on the radio every day, the Christian radio. He would have, I think he had a show. He definitely had segments. You were always hearing from him. He wrote lots of books, and he was very instrumental in kind of defining those gender roles.
Yeah.
There are other resources within our church community that we use. One book in particular, The Christian Family, which I find hilarious that I never read, but it was like the go-to resource. Emily's still kind of annoyed that I never read it. But they didn't have the audiobook version, so how could I? Right?
I can't weed.
But it shared the same principles, and and those resources were adopted by like mainstream Christianity within
Yeah.
by the 80s and 90s for sure. And they're very outdated, much like gender roles are already,
Sure.
like traditional gender roles. So that's where I picked up on those three characteristics: priest, provider, protector.
Hmm.
And so, as I can explain those a little bit more, but like a priest meant basically you are the spiritual leader
Yeah.
of your
Of your
family.
family in it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so your job is to like foster an environment where Christian faith can flourish,
Hmm.
and be passed on. And so, what that looked like was, you would teach the Bible to your kids. You would teach, the value of prayer and worship on a personal level.
Hmm.
How using the Bible to like back everything up that you're
Yeah.
teaching, and like basically just be the like a priest is to a church. You
Yeah.
are you are to your home.
Your family is your flock.
Yeah, and to me that wasn't foreign, and honestly, like I grew up that way. It was familiar to me, and it was
Yeah.
very positive. Like
Sure.
it was very sheltered.
Hmm.
Um, and when like you're not functioning under this high control fear, I think it was very good.
Hmm.
I'm not saying it's the only way. It
Yeah.
certainly is not. But for me and for my parents, like they chose these roles before they entered into this culty church,
Yeah.
and it was really wonderful. It was a
Yeah.
wonderful way to grow up. And so what that looked like for me, and I emulated that with my kids in their early years.
Yeah.
Was to we would sit down for supper every night together as a family,
Sure.
and we would say grace. That's a
Yeah.
pretty normal thing, right?
Yeah. Wait, I
Um,
just, before I lose it, actually, one thing that I think is really important is that you said your parents chose
yes.
those general roles. So,
Yeah.
like, that's just like, yeah, it works for you if you feel
Yeah.
like you had the agency
Right.
to be like, let me think about this.
Right.
We both agree and we
Hmm.
choose. So, anyway,
Yeah, and that's a good point. Like that is like I think this is a perfectly acceptable way to live
yeah.
when you're not in a cult.
When you're
when,
not being forced, when you're not
what
being abused into
right?
it.
What it looked like was, we would have dinner at the table, bedtime. We would always pray for the kids, each one.
Yeah.
Essentially a practice of gratitude and reflection,
Yeah.
and good things. I would often try to be the example, so I would want to live what I was teaching my kids, not just tell
Mm-hmm.
them, but so I was
Yeah.
often getting up early in the morning and praying, and they would
Mm-hmm.
see that and know that, and I would. Our group was highly focused on worship, which is a big part of Christianity these days. I mean, there's a whole industry behind Christian music and Christian worship, which is kind of an oxymoron in itself, but to,
Oh
to
my
turn it
gosh.
into an
Actually,
industry is
remember one time we had to
yeah.
deliver stuff
Go ahead.
on campus? I got into Eric's Chevy
Traverse a family
Traverse,
car.
a family car, and we were like delivering like
Yeah.
brochures or something around campus, and Eric was like, I want you to listen to this band I've been listening to. They're really awesome. And I was like, heck yeah, let's do it. And you turned it on and it was some like
I
Christian
think it was
rock.
Christmas music,
I
but it
think
was
it
like
was.
modern
That's right.
Christian Christmas.
Modern Christian
You were
music.
very
And,
gracious.
because I love you so much, I was like, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's great. It's
pretty
great.
good. And then I was like, that was weird. Mostly just because like my experience with like Christian rock was like I went away to boarding school, and because I grew up in a Catholic church, and the school I was going to was more Jesuit, like it was
Okay.
Episcopalian Jesuit, like so there was like God Squad, and
Yeah.
like we would like go, and it was Christian fellowship, so
Hmm.
we would go and to some adult's house, a teacher who would have like cookies and play
Hmm.
guitar and like sing Christian rock. And I just remember sitting in there being like, I don't, this feels
Hmm.
weird to
Hmm.
me. I don't know why. I didn't know why. But so actually, my reaction was just like to that time where I was like still sorting out my feelings on religion. And so, like, when we were listening to, and, probably like, I remember you being like, the music is really good. And I was like, yeah, I don't think you're listening to this for just the music,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah,
Anyway,
there were. I think there were a couple of times like that with me and you, where
yeah,
my those expectations were coming out and being forced upon you.
right.
Like to me, I think of it like anytime I did that, especially to you, because you were never a
Hmm.
target for me, or
Right.
rarely. It was like there was probably some pressure behind it to witness to somebody this week.
Witness.
Make sure you tell somebody about Christ. And that was like a
Right.
feeble attempt just so I would have something to say to the meeting I have to go
Yeah.
to tonight. You know, uh,
Totally. Right, right, which I had no idea. I just like, because it
it
was
was
such an
so
aberration
cringy.
from the
I
norm
mean,
that it would
there's
like pop in and I'd be
uh,
like, weird.
those
Okay.
moments I still just fold over and like full on shame, like cringe, and like, oh, I hate myself for them. Like, I still
It
get
never
embarrassed about
felt,
them.
but it never felt
Yeah.
unsafe or like you didn't listen to me
But
if
it's
I was
so
like, yeah, no,
blatantly
I'm good,
not
thanks.
me, right?
Right. Yeah, you were, I would,
Like, why are
because
you
yeah, I
being
would be
weird?
like, weird. Yeah, like, hey, thanks for getting my Chevy Traverse. Whoa, listen to this
Yeah.
music I'm all of a sudden
Yeah.
listening to. I was like, cool. Ugh. It wasn't, but it wasn't like you ever Well, we've talked about this though with witnessing. Like the one time you were like, you know, you should come to the church, and I was like, do you think that the
Yeah.
church because I
Yeah.
said you only said it once. I said I've been looking for a faith
Uh-huh.
community to like
Uh-huh.
rejoin. Like I said that to you, and then that's
Yeah.
when you were like, oh well, like you should come to my church, and I was like, do you think they'd be okay with me being gay? And you were like,
No.
no.
But you should come.
And I was like,
So
oh
I guess I won't
yeah.
come.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think I want to be part of
Yeah.
that. And you were like, yeah, I mean, it would be nice. I think, there's lots of singing. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
One thing
Anyway.
about our church that I think was like, again, there's so much wonderful things about it that if it just wasn't as
A
if it
cult.
just wasn't a cult, it would have been really meaningful and really, you know, there were a lot of spaces that I found comfort in, and
Yeah.
really satisfied that spiritual need in me.
Yep.
But a lot of it just feels kind of spoiled because of
Yeah,
how toxic it was. But anyway,
totally.
back to
Anyway,
yeah, just how those. So
so
yeah,
you're,
I'm like raising my kids this way, um,
yeah.
and so
So you're married, you have kids, the
right,
expectations are
yeah.
different. You're trying to
I'm
live
trying to be
it
the priest. I'm
like
trying to be the
authentically.
protector.
Yeah.
The protector is, uh, praying for them, sheltering them from the world, right? So that
Mm,
means monitoring, again, normal stuff as a parent. You're not going to let your kids
yeah,
watch scary movies, or
sure.
listen to explicit music. But it was
Yeah.
heightened. It was like way more than that. It wasn't just
Yeah.
explicit music. It was you're not listening to anything other than Christian music.
Any
Yeah.
pop culture. Yeah.
And uh, there was definitely the physical side of protecting them, but again, that's what any good parent would do.
Totally.
And that got really weird. Like, there's this whole like gun culture that entered the scene in kind of the early 2000s, that we'll get into in part two, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then the provider is, financially, you put food on the table. You give your wife what she needs to carry out your orders. uh,
Yeah.
make sure there is food so she can make it, right?
You need hearing aids to hear me better.
But then also there was like, you need to make sure your family is ready for the end times, So
Right.
we were.
Were your end times like rapture?
No, we didn't believe in the rapture. We did
Okay.
believe in the Great Tribulation,
Tell me
which I
more.
think is like, God, I'm gonna get this so bad, so wrong. Um, I think it was like, it stemmed out of the Book of Revelation, which is kind of the
Okay.
apocalyptic book of
Yeah.
of the Bible, the last book. But it's like a a period of time the where Satan and all his powers were allowed to come to Earth and basically just destroy it. So it would bring famine.
Oh.
It would bring pestilence. So there's things like the pandemic, or anything close to, like I remember the bird flu or the swine flu was like, oh,
Right.
we better
Yeah.
get all of our medical
Things in
supplies
order.
and stockpiled, and the threat of famine, to where we wouldn't have the food we'd needed from grocery stores, so we'd have to have it
Mm.
stockpiled, and we needed to be good, like we needed to know how to like grow food so we could
Yeah.
provide for ourselves, and basically just be self-sufficient in these times of tribulation, which were
And
sign of the end times.
was that all like you were in charge of that for your family, but this was also happening like cult wide at the location
Yeah,
Like
so
at
there was a piece of
yeah,
property we purchased in the late 90s. So when I was a kid, it was shortly after we started going
joined.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so you had to be the point person for your family unit on like how to prepare for
Yeah.
that.
And again, it's all fear based. So there's like this kind of underlying fear of like if you don't have enough, it is your fault. You're
Yeah.
responsible, and like you're a bad husband. You don't love your
Provider,
kids. And
protector.
you have now
Yeah.
become complacent. You are that deadbeat dad that hasn't devoted his life enough. You're no longer, you're not part of the elite. And so I think this is a good lead into the big cautionary tale of Jezebel and Ahab, right? Which is
Uh-huh.
a story out of the Bible that was used to teach us the dangers of being complacent, but
Teach
to teach men.
men
Yeah.
the
So
yeah.
Ahab was a king of Israel. It's a fairly small story within the Old Testament that a specific group of Christians. I don't know if it's just the fundies or if there are
Yeah.
other denominations that kind of obsess over this story. But basically, Ahab was kind of a deadbeat king. He didn't. He wanted like a comfy life. He didn't want to own up to his kingly responsibilities to the point where Jezebel, the queen, basically did it for him. And so he essentially just allowed her to take over and 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 take control. And a woman in control is like a huge no-no, right? I mean, that's goes
That
totally against the
they can't even
patriarchy, and yeah,
drive, you
right. And
know?
that's like
How could they
the
be in
ultimate
control?
sin
Ugh.
here, right?
Right, right. Is that the woman was in
Yeah, the woman
control.
leads. God forbid. Um,
Yeah.
she was also within the story. She was also pretty nasty person, right?
Okay. Of course she was.
But that was the cautionary
Cautionary
tale.
tale.
Don't be so complacent that your wife takes over, that your wife starts leading.
She's not
Right.
puppeting
And
you from
yeah,
in the
and
background,
she's
yeah.
yeah, manipulation and was like
Mm-hmm.
a big word, and being called a Jezebel or functioning in the Jezebel spirit or the Ahab spirit was evidence of a complacent husband, a lazy husband who wasn't owning up to his gender role as a provider, protector, priest.
So how did this show up for Emily?
So Emily, she was more scrutinized. So like her duties were to be submissive, to be the homemaker, to be the mother, the nurturer, but to also be what they, I think this is another James Dobson term, was to be the helpmeet, which I think is, yeah, stems help
Help
meet, yeah, help
meet
hyphen meet,
MEAT?
MEET. Yeah,
Oh,
like
okay.
you meet the needs of your husband.
Help meet. Got
You
it.
carry out the things he wants for the family, or
Right.
and so yeah, and so her duties were like she had people coming over to teach her things, but to also like monitor and like
Evaluate.
evaluate how
Yeah.
she's doing and what she can do to improve. Um, we should just call her. You want to just okay,
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
okay. So
duh.
let's
Let's
do that.
definitely do that. Okay, great. Okay, so Emily, we were talking, I think Eric gave you a little primer on what we're talking about today, but we specifically were just chatting about the kind of gender roles in the church, and even more specifically, like what could you give us an example or two of how that showed up for you as a woman, and then maybe talk a little about like psychologically, how did that land for you? And if it gets too weird, obviously just be like, ew, I don't like talking about this. But somehow I think that's not the case.
No, there's too many things that we could go into.
Too many rabbit holes, would you say?
It's like every rabbit trail could be a rabbit hole.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Every single one. Okay, gender roles. Yeah, it was pretty classical in the sense that, like, as a woman, well, more like as a wife, because as like an unmarried woman, there was like so much weird liberty that was given to us.
Huh.
But once I was married, it was very like,
Rigid?
I couldn't, what?
Like rigid?
Yeah, super rigid. And it was scary, because it was like, there was nothing that I could ever really do right. So, like, it had to be, the main thing was, like, why submit to your husband? Always that.
Yeah.
And that was tricky for me, because there was nothing to, quote-unquote, submit to.
Right. Right. Right.
What are you talking about? And then another thing is, like, our church was really into, like, you can't be a Jezebel.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like,
So don't over manage. Is that what that was shorthand for?
you can't overmanage, but see, it was tricky because it was like being a good steward of your household was like incredibly important.
Right.
So, like, how do you do both?
Emily, who was the enforcer for women? Like pull you aside. It was John.
It was John.
Well,
And
you
if it
did
wasn't
have.
John, he would send his
Yes.
wife or a few of the other older women, but he would be the one who would send them.
Oh, so he would observe you, say, Emily's being a bad wife. We need to correct this.
Yes.
Ugh. So what did that do? I mean, how did that impact your sense of self?
I couldn't figure out who I was because everything that I was just doing normally, I was suddenly told was bad.
Right.
And my friends will attest to this, is that just like he started labeling me as a complainer, a manipulator.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
manipulation was like a buzzword.
Yeah, that was like a buzzword, especially linked with the Jezebel spirit, as we like to say. But the idea that I would complain to my husband, to Eric, and manipulate him into not being the spiritual leader he was supposed to be.
Oh, it was your fault.
Yeah,
Right.
so I would get confronted with that all the time. And it would just be like, I don't know what I did. I was just being my normal self.
Right.
I didn't mean to do that.
So you're being taught that your
Yeah.
normal self was sinful.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I remember having a really candid conversation with Eric one time after we'd been like in a really horrible meeting about where I was confronted with all of those things.
Wait, can I ask a meeting like with other, like John and others?
A public meeting. Yeah.
You and Eric?
More or less
It was
public.
what we call the home. Yeah, it was called the home fellowship, and it was just kind of like a mini church. So there was like probably 20 or 30 people there.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
for more the devoted congregants would meet during the week.
Okay.
Whereas
So,
a
yeah,
Sunday meeting, a Sunday meeting was more public, where you would have stragglers come in, but we never really did. Nobody wanted to be a part of us. Sorry.
No.
Yeah.
I got confronted in one of those meetings, and it was pretty devastating and embarrassing and humiliating. And I remember leaving and having this very candid conversation with Eric, just like walking from the house to our car. I'm like, I'm really sorry that I've been doing this to you all this time. I didn't know I was. I want you to know that, like, I was not trying to be intentionally like evil,
Mm.
right? And he's
Yeah.
just like, I know, it's just something. And, you're trying to, like, now I can look back and be like, okay, we were just trying to cope with the insanity of it all.
Yeah.
Back then, I would have said that we were just, trying to repent and we were trying to find God, and it was hard. And I remember after that, I would spend days, sometimes entire days, like 2-3 days, trying to figure out how to ask Eric a simple question.
Oh, yeah. I think what's interesting. Oh, go ahead. Well, I just think it's interesting, though. I mean, this reflects back what Eric was saying earlier in when we were talking that you and he almost just by virtue of being the way you are naturally was so rebellious. And even in that moment where you were being shamed in a really twisted, awful way, your instinct was still to turn toward him and be like, I kind of want to try harder and better. I'm sorry. And you guys were like, I mean, it speaks to kind of, I mean, who you guys are, but also just the depth of talk about manipulation that was going on, that you felt like you didn't understand why you had to say sorry, but you knew you did because otherwise you'd be being bad. And that's so painful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
give her. So Emily and I talked about this last night because I was just trying to remember some things more accurately. But Emily, you told me that story about buying the kids clothes. I think it was a good
Yeah.
example of like how scrutinized every little thing in our lives uh, was. And tell us about that.
So that terrible meeting where our lives are like turned upside down by
Yeah.
virtue of me being a bad person, right? That happened sometime in November, okay?
Okay.
And then weekly we go back up and have to like give an account of how we were doing, and it was
Ugh.
terrible. By January, though, we had this. In January, there was this thing at the University Mall, which is like an hour away. They were called the sidewalk sale.
Your church did?
No, it was just
the
Oh,
mall did. So
yeah, okay.
the mall would have this thing called the sidewalk sale, and all of my peers, who we all had kids about the same age, we would go there and buy clothes for our kids for like the next upcoming 2 years.
Wow.
We could get them summer clothes, we could get them
Yeah.
the next size up for winter clothes, and it's cents on the dollar. All of the
Yeah.
stores would put out like major clearance, right?
Yeah.
But it would be a little chunk of change, right? It would be,
Yeah.
$200 though. I could get 2 years worth of clothes for 3 kids.
Right.
It was crazy, right? And so I spend days trying to figure out how to ask Eric for this money without manipulating him.
Ugh.
Because I'm like not ever sure if what my question is manipulation. And also, I was going to go with my friends to the mall.
Yeah.
The babysitter would for the kids. Probably we would go eat in the little, the mall
Food court.
So it would be fun, right? And so God
Right.
forbid I ask him something that will be also fun for me.
Ugh.
Like, keep in mind, Eric has no idea I feel
Yeah.
sick.
Right.
He's not over here just like, yeah, Emily, figure out a way to ask me this question.
Yeah.
He's like, going to work and coming home. And
We're partners. We're
Yeah.
equals. Like, of course, go do that. Like, you don't have to ask me. On top of the fact that, like, we're kind of dependent on this sale to care for our children.
Right.
To me, it's a no-brainer.
I'm trying to figure out how
But
to
she's
do this
struggling with all of this.
Right. And I finally asked him, and of course he's like, yeah, that sounds great. It's a little pricey, but like, let's use this money and we'll figure it out. And we figured it out together.
Because that's what we do.
Wow. Oh my God, I think I did it right. So I share about it in home fellowship. I share about trying
This
not
experience.
to manipulate him.
Yeah.
I share about like, hey, I really wanted to do this. It really felt like it was a good, way for me to do this. And so I managed to ask him without manipulating him into it. Meanwhile, I'm just gambling here. I have no idea, because none of that really existed.
Right.
But I really deeply felt that it did. It must, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And I remember just getting cheered on. John was just like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. No manipulation. Like, I can hear his tone of voice. And just like, I did it right, you know? And it's such a clear, like, ringing moment of how it always was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. You know?
Well, and how do you know? I mean, obviously the finish line is always changing. The rules are totally subjective, but if you don't believe in those things, it calls into question the larger framework, which is too big to touch. So it keeps you paralyzed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh.
It always keeps you working hard, never achieving anything tangible.
Well, you're only achieving what John wanted you to achieve.
You're always puppeted, you know? You're
right.
It's like a lot of emotional labor.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I think it really, I mean, we heard about kind of the opaque, like not so clear, maybe vague is the better word, boundaries and like expectations for men. There was like always something you were supposed to be striving for, but what that was or how to do it was a little bit unclear. But for women, it sounds like there was just this really very rigid expectation with a lot of good examples of what you shouldn't do and how you're supposed to submit, but that also sowed a lot of confusion because ultimately it wasn't real. So you weren't following a real playbook.
Yeah, it was like constantly being on like a rolling ship. Like you never knew what was going to be, what was going to throw you off next.
Yeah.
You know, you could walk into a room and John would say something like as a joke to you about something. Because he would do that all the time. It was like a jokey tone of voice, particularly towards the women. And if you joked along with him, you never knew if he was going to turn on a dime and make it a spiritual problem.
Oh, God. Wow.
I was remembering today how he came up to me and Eric one time when we were at a summer camp for the church. And we were all having burgers for dinner. The whole, like, picnic table. We're all sitting there having burgers. No biggie. It's dinner time. We're having fun. And he looked at me and he goes, did you ask Eric if he wanted you to have that hamburger tonight?
Oh.
And I laughed. And he kind of had like a look on his face because he would do that. You know, like it was like a jokey moment, you know? And I joked back about like, I don't even remember what I said. And then he flipped it on a dime. You should be asking your husband what he wants you to be eating. You know that, right? I guess you don't like to submit to your husband, do you? And
he was very fat phobic too. You know, the second you gained 3 pounds, and yeah.
Like,
oh my God!
And Eric was just like, I don't know, like I'll eat your burger, babe. I don't care. I'm like, what? Am I supposed to care about this too?
Wow.
And, yeah, but if I had taken that, I know now that if I had taken that comment seriously and been like,
he would have said, like, I'm just joking.
Yeah, and he would have been like, stop taking everything so seriously. And that would be a spiritual problem, too.
Right. Yep. Right. Wow.
So as a thing, that was how it was for women, for sure. Was a constant, like, off-kilter. You never knew one day if you're going to be called a woman of God or
a Jezebel.
A Jezebel.
Yeah.
Wow.
And everybody has an eating disorder.
Everybody.
Oh, God. Well, thank you for sharing that, Emily. The way you guys both talk about it, I'm just so glad that your like selves were always like they didn't totally squelch the most special parts about both of you, which is awesome. But I know it's taken a lot of like reorganizing in your lives to really sort what's up and what's down post John.
A lot of just unshackling and being like, oh, thank God, we don't have to think about that anymore.
Yeah, the mental load you were talking about for sure. All right. Well, thank you, Emily. As always, you're the best.
Yeah. So you can see that it's all very like psychological and like in your head, and you're constantly under this pressure of like having to fill these roles that I think like for the most part we were fulfilling, you know?
Right.
But it's when particularly when Emily did or say something, she was then functioning in the Jezebel spirit, which meant I wasn't doing my job,
Right.
which became very nebulous to me. Like that's the part that was like, what is it I'm not doing? Because
Right.
I am.
If you were doing your job, she wouldn't have to
She
be
would.
acting in the Jezebel spirit.
It wouldn't
But
have been, right.
she's wrong for acting in the Jezebel spirit. So, like, yeah,
Yeah.
what a
And
snake eating
so
its tail.
and so that accusation usually came from John, always came from John.
Yeah.
Everyone was afraid of it happening,
Yeah.
so everybody's like, it's like a witch hunt,
Yeah.
it's a threat that didn't actually exist, but everybody's paranoid of being, burned at the stake. So they're like pointing out things that
Other people are doing.
could get you in trouble, so that.
I remember, I don't know if this is related or not, but I remember before you guys were out of the church, you even told me the story about how someone came over and like told John that your house wasn't clean enough.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
you got
That
raked over
happened.
the coals.
That happened a number of times. Yeah. So they told John our house wasn't clean enough, and it was during like a holiday celebration, like publicly,
Yeah.
and he just reamed us out, like just raked us over the coals, up and down, and we left in tears. I mean, basically ran out of there
Yeah.
as quick as we could. The only person who stuck up for us, God bless her, was Emily's grandmother, who didn't really, she wasn't a regular member. She was there because it was a holiday celebration.
Okay. So she was kind of like, what is
Yeah,
this?
kind of. I mean,
Yeah.
she did attend for a while in her last years,
Yeah.
but she was older and she didn't quite understand the dynamics.
Yeah.
So while she didn't like specifically speak to the wrongdoing, she did understand that something was wrong, and she spoke to John about it publicly.
Wow.
And she was in tears too, like, how come we can't just get along? How come,
Yeah.
and John basically shut her down too. So we left. Emily's parents were worried we were done. We were gone at that point. Like we weren't.
They thought you were
going
going to leave the church.
Yeah, they were worried about us. And honestly, it was devastating because it was so confusing. Like, why? Because we didn't know somebody had quote unquote
Ratted you out.
pulled on us, right? So
Yeah.
we're like, where is this coming from?
Who is it? Yeah. Like,
Right. Later we found out who it was, but there were multiple instances like that. So like, I was being called on to go to the property and help develop things. There we were building barns, we were clearing land, we were doing all kinds of things to build essentially a compound of buildings and
was that for the end times?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was. We called it. It literally took on the title, the sanctuary, the place
Yeah.
you go for safety.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was being called on I had worked there every Saturday since I was 14 years old, right up until my late 30s.
Oh my God.
It was just a part of life. You go to church.
You were working like 10, 16-hour days there.
Yeah, certainly 10. And depending on what was going on, we put in a lot of time there, and I learned a lot there.
Sure.
A lot of like basic skills.
Yeah, and I just like shout out to your framing skills that helped me a lot.
Yeah, so I learned how to build things. I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, so just back to the shaming.
So I was part of that, and it was pulling me away from the family, to the point where it was weighing on Emily, and it was weighing on my sister. Emily and my sister were very close friends, and so they ended up going over to my mom's house and telling her about how hard it was, and they ended up, and my mom's, likely struggling with similar pressures.
Totally,
my dad was a leader in the church, and
Yeah.
and he was under a lot of that, pressure and control. So they ended up having a couple of glasses of wine and just kind of gushing, and it ended up to where my mom just was legitimately worried for them, to where she brought it up, and it got to John, which then he took as a threat, like,
there's dissent.
yeah, there's women whining and complaining and manipulating, trying to manipulate the direction this our church was going in and developing this property, and that was a threat to him because that was his home and his dream and the thing that he wanted for himself, right? So it ultimately came back to John and disrupting his flow
Vision.
and his vision.
Did John did John's whole power stem from like he had a direct line to God?
Yes, yes.
So
He
yeah,
was like he had the word of God.
yeah,
He always try he was always quote unquote teaching us how to hear the Holy Spirit for ourselves, and he would get really frustrated when things weren't going his way, that we weren't hearing the Holy Spirit. Um, and
I want a bookmark for part 2.
yeah.
If you do want to talk about it, the like smaller youth
Mm-hmm.
where like he would what
Teach us
not
how to exercise demons.
exorcise demons. I
Yeah.
really just yeah I want to
Yeah, no, we'll get into the
yeah.
juicy stuff for sure.
So I just like what I hear from you and what Emily said was just like it's a really confusing mix of very quote unquote clear rules that you had
Mm-hmm.
to follow, which were oppressive, but they were so there was always like the ground was always moving under you, so it was also really
Mm-hmm.
confusing and kept you in a state of like fear and like you never knew which step was going to be a landmine.
Yeah, I think yeah. So there were very clear rules, and there were rules that we were comfortable with applying to our lives.
Yeah.
We grew up that way. It worked for our parents, but because they were so highly scrutinized and enforced, and we never seemed to get it quite right, it was stressful, and
Yeah.
so it took the joy out of it. Not to mention that it the even the traditional gender roles we didn't quite fit into. We
Yeah.
weren't our parents. We didn't get to choose this.
Right.
And had we had any other walk of life, we probably would have chosen something a little more progressive than
Yeah.
those traditional gender roles.
Right.
And so that's where, and this is where we answer the question, right? What do we have to let go of? And it was really letting go. It was really we came to a conscious decision of just not putting on those hats, and so where we were still following them to the degree that we thought it was beneficial and healthy for our kids and even us, because we weren't giving it our all and doing it to the extreme way that was expected of us. There was a lot of shame and guilt built in, but we still decided that we weren't going to do that because it was impossible, for
Yeah.
one, but also it was like tearing us apart.
Yeah.
And so we made this conscious decision that, okay, we are kind of going to live kind of like a double life, but like,
A life of sin.
yeah, but also like we're just going to hide this part of us
Yeah.
because it was a safe space for Emily and Liz to go to my mom and to
Yeah.
just be able to talk. That was a safe space that
Yeah.
was taken away from them.
Yeah.
And I think though we wouldn't have described it like that at that time, that's what Emily and I were choosing to preserve for ourselves
Yeah. Within your own home.
within our own home, within our own relationship.
Yeah.
And so, there would be things like, I'm going to help Emily change the baby's diapers because she's
Yeah.
got a lot going on,
Yeah, because you guys have 5 kids.
because we have 5 kids, and of course I'm going to do these quote unquote like feminine things
Yeah.
because that's what a normal person would do.
Right.
That's common sense, you know.
Yeah.
But for things like that to get out would again be just a point away from us,
Right.
and you know, ammunition for John to use against us, you know, to
Yeah.
get us to continue to conform
Yeah.
in the way that was useful to him.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
yeah, so that's, you know, that's kind of the gist of it, of like the
Wow.
because Emily and I made that choice, and this was probably, I don't know, 5 or 10 years into our marriage, that we decided we can't do this anymore. We're just
Yeah.
gonna have to hide this part of us, and do our best, honestly.
Yeah.
But man, again, it sounds cheesy. The power of love
Yeah, I mean, there's
really
no
preserved
way.
us.
Yeah, I mean, this, if you were different people, if you were a different person, it just would have gone
Yeah.
a totally
And if you
different way.
and like Emily said, you know, it's like she was being told that her own intuitions and her own sensibilities were bad, were sinful, and that wasn't her. When in fact, if we had have been more in tune with those, if 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 we had have followed our intuitions and what seemed natural to us, we would have thrived.
Right.
You know, we would have
Right.
grown into the relationship, and again, the enforcement happened like almost right away,
Immediately. Yeah.
into marriage. It's like we didn't even have time to grow up.
Oh.
And so I think I think the takeaways from this would be like my intuition is often wiser than I realized. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
you know, the moment we stop trying to contort ourselves into someone else's version
Totally.
of right, you know, we
Yeah.
protected what mattered most, right?
Yep.
And then letting go of the shame really created a safe space for us. You know, when
So much of your mind wasn't being dragged towards
yeah,
fear of being,
when the pressure to be
yeah.
something or someone
Yeah.
was gone, our relationship had room to breathe instead of turning inward and destructive. Like
Yeah.
I was clinically depressed. Like there were long bouts of me just depressed, and I thought it was like a generational thing. Like I was taught it was a curse, you know,
Yeah.
that I needed to break spiritually. But it was really just that I was in this controlling environment. You
Yeah.
know, it has never been anything I've struggled with since.
Yeah.
And you know, growth doesn't have to be performative.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
It
know,
doesn't.
like moving
Yeah.
out, like moving at your own pace, imperfectly, is
Yeah. And
still
being
real
informed,
growth.
yeah, by what is coming up from in you.
Yeah, you know, it doesn't have to look polished. It doesn't have to look impressive to the outside.
No, it's like so boring.
Yeah. And so it's
Yeah.
like you can just live your life and grow as a person, you know?
You can.
It's possible.
It's possible.
Believe it or not.
Yeah.
Like just
Yeah.
moving through life, you
Wow.
grow.
Yeah. Well, hopefully. Right?
I mean, yeah.
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 And I think, I mean, I also like won't discount, I think in all of this, just you know, I'm sure you hear this question all the time, and over time listening to you kind of deprogram from this, it never actually occurs to me to wonder, like, how did you not know? Because you were actually being told that you were growing and you were trying to become better, and you were following a path that you thought was kind of in alignment with values that you still have today. So that's the confusing kind of
And that's what
part.
a lot of therapy was for me afterwards, was like
Yeah.
sorting the good from the bad, and
Yeah.
that was very helpful. But like, yeah, I mean, you can never go wrong with choosing the path of love, right?
Yeah.
If we want to bring it back to
Yeah,
to that.
we always
But,
do.
yeah, but choosing a path
Yeah.
of love and connection,
Yeah.
and
Free of
and
judgment
trust. Yeah,
and fear.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you can't go wrong,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so, fortunately for me and Emily, that's what really preserved us in all of that.
I think though, I think, I mean, I just, my heart, I have a lot of compassion for maybe people who believe that what they're doing is out of love. Like, no, we're doing this
Yeah,
because
I
we
know.
love
It's
you. We
whoops.
want you to be, and
Yeah,
that's an abuse
yeah,
of that. So that's where it gets so confusing because
yeah,
I don't think you were with people in this cult or high control situation that are, they're not monsters. They're not inherently bad people. They were being told that their path forward was guided by love of,
yeah.
God, love of your family. And that
And I think I'll get into that in part two.
wasn't your church Chewy name. Like, wasn't it called Love Never Fails?
Yeah, well, okay, so that yeah, which is ironic.
Boy, did it fail.
That version of love definitely
Well,
failed.
because it wasn't.
Yeah,
It wasn't. That was a
yeah,
misnomer.
yeah.
Okay. I mean, thank you for sharing all of that and kind of, I think just, I'm so struck by always by you and Emily as a couple, but it's so much more impressive that you were able to, under all of that, like shelter with each other, and it made you guys even stronger, and that you survived all of that and came out like kind of with the validation, like proof of concept that you were like,
Yeah.
wait, our instincts were right,
Right.
and
Yeah.
like that was really powerful.
Yeah. It's a point of pride for me.
Yeah.
I I love that about us.
God, I
And
love us.
God, I love us. We're the best. No. Yeah, but I think part two we can focus on kind of like the day to day of this group,
Yep.
or kind of like more of the outrageous things that I think are fun to talk about. They're a little juicier.
The salacious details that
Yeah,
we've all been waiting for.
yeah, and also like why we stayed. Like I
Yeah.
think because in my own deconstruction, I ask myself that constantly. Like, I watched and read and listened to numerous podcasts and documentaries and films
Documentaries.
on
Yeah.
cults. And I would even ask, like, why didn't they just leave? Me. I'm asking that of someone
Yeah.
else when I should
Yeah.
be probably the most understanding.
Yeah.
But I do want to address that question.
Yeah.
And I don't think our cult was any different than any other cult, whether religious
Yeah.
or not.
Yeah.
They all have similar characteristics that make them look appealing, and then that trap you into
Yeah.
sticking around,
Yep.
and enduring things that otherwise look insane.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I mean, I don't think it's any, different than like that, we've learned not to ask that of, someone who's being abused by their partner,
right.
because
Yeah.
we know what
Yeah.
abuse
Yeah. It's very much
does.
like that.
It's
Yeah.
hard to, it's so hard to leave. It's a cycle that, and I think, like talking about it in the context of something that maybe someone hasn't experienced is helpful to just say, like, here were the power, like the tools of control and abuse that were at play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to just like plant the seed for, definitely the exorcism
Yeah.
nights,
Yeah.
the gun shop.
Yeah.
I think those are two that, definitely
Yeah.
stick in my mind. And
All right.
I wonder if you recall when we walked on the rail trail, as you were like, one of the times in the pandemic, we took like a really, really long
Yeah.
walk on the rail
Yeah.
trail. And I remember you just like, because you were in therapy about this, talking
Yeah.
about it. So it was all really fresh in your mind. And I have this memory of me being like, like my jaw was just dragging along the rail trail,
Yeah,
being like,
yeah,
and kept being like, what? And you were like, yeah. And then, boom. And I was like, So I hope our listeners have that same experience.
Yeah, hopefully. It'll be fun.
Okay. Well, I love you so much.
I love you too.
I'll talk to you later.
Until next time.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and TikTok.